Well, hi. I'm Phil Sandberg, publisher of Content and Technology, and I'm here with Griffin Hammond, who is a New York-based filmmaker, documentary maker. And I understand you've been using Panasonic's GH5 camera to quite good effect on as recently as the last US presidential election. So how did all that come about?
Well, I've been a GH user for forever, I guess since the first one. Since 2010, I had the GH1. And I shot the last presidential election with the Panasonic GH4 in 4K. And Panasonic finally noticed me because I've been using these cameras for a long time on my own. And they asked me if I wanted to be the first documentary filmmaker to shoot with a GH5. So they gave me a pre-production model, and I've been shooting with this since December.
Okay. What are the advantages of that DSLR format over, say, a traditional looking broadcast or film camera?
Right. Well, the biggest thing for me is just the form factor and it being lightweight. That as a documentary filmmaker, I like being pretty unobtrusive and kind of a fly on the wall. And I find, like, if I cover a red carpet event, I can put a tuxedo on, walk out on the red carpet with a little camera like this, and no one knows that I'm shooting 4K, 60p, I'm getting professional results, but they let me do it. If I had a big shoulder rig, they would say, hey, get out of here, you're press, you're not supposed to be here. But there's access I can get with a camera like this.
Okay. And in terms of, I guess, performance, the quality of the image, that all stacks up?
Oh, yeah. I'm very happy with the image quality on this camera. I love the lens lineup. Like, this is one of my favorites, the 12mm f1.4. So I can shoot in dark bars. I'm getting great images on the camera with it.
Okay. And in terms of, so, the workflow on something like the presidential election, that would be something happening every day.
Oh, yeah.
You'd be creating a lot of files. So how do you handle all of that?
Well, I'm shooting in the MOV format on this camera. I'm shooting in its highest bit rate right now, which is 150 megabits per second. But it's a H.264 codec, so good efficiency. It looks good at that bit rate. I can fit about, I guess in 4K, I can get around 40 minutes per 32 gig card. But I just back all that up to a hard drive and keep those files.
All right, and dealing with the output in post is easy?
Yeah, I'm editing in Final Cut 10, and it can handle the MOV files, or I can shoot MP4 files, but either way, the software can handle it. I did have to get a new computer to handle 4K 60p footage.
Okay. My
2012 iMac could not actually play those files. I could have created proxy files and edited that way, but I wanted to edit in the native 4K 60, so I got a new iMac for that.
All right. And how many cameras do you use?
How many cameras?
Yeah.
I shoot with two camera bodies, two GH5 camera bodies, but I still have my GH4s as well. But really, I just need two camera bodies just to limit how much lens swapping I'm doing.
Okay. And so I guess covering an event like an election has its own rigors, but what other projects have you been involved with? And in terms of how rugged is the camera?
Sure. I do all sorts of documentary style projects. I did a film on the GH3 called Sriracha. It's about hot sauce.
Okay.
And then when they gave me the GH5, they let me shoot whatever I wanted. And so I shot a 5-minute short called Hand Cut. It's about ice in New York City cocktails. And one of the cool things about that shoot was...
That's frozen water ice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that kind of ice. Not the drug scene in New York. But one of the fun things in that film is that I'm filming chainsaws cutting through these giant blocks of ice. And the camera is splash-proof, freeze-proof, dust-proof. So is the 12mm. So I was just getting up real close to the chainsaw and letting spray hit the camera. It's getting all over the lens. Just some fun shots.
Okay. And so you're in Australia for SMPTE 17?
Yeah, for SMPTE, yeah.
And would you be undertaking any shooting while you're here?
Yeah, I actually made it over to Bondi Beach a couple mornings in a row to get some sunrise. I actually went to Mrs. Macquarie's chair to get some opera house shots and the bridge shots. But everything in Sydney is beautiful, so I'm enjoying shooting like time lapses and some 4K video.
Yeah. So if we could expand on that, the capabilities of the camera are just as equal, if not better than other cameras, or?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I can do everything I need to do with this one camera body. I can do time lapses built in. It has a built-in intervalometer. It takes 20 megapixel photos, so I shoot with the whole sensor, take photographs in RAW, and then I can edit those into a video. And then on the video side of things, I'm usually shooting in 4K 60. So if I need to slow that down to 30 frames per second or 25 or something, I can do that. And with lenses like this 12mm f1.4, I can get all the shallow depth of field and low light performance I need. So I feel like there's a lot of different things I could shoot in one camera body.
All right. And you said Panasonic gave you one of these.
Yeah.
So you're part of a testing program. So what sorts of things do they get you to put it through?
Well, I was glad that they wanted to hear my feedback. You know, if there were any things I didn't like about the previous camera. There were a couple of user interface things I wanted them to upgrade, and they did that. There were some features like it has in-body image stabilization, which I wouldn't have asked for. I didn't think that I needed that. But a lens like the 12mm doesn't have its own stabilization built into the lens. But now every lens I put on this camera does. It's all in the sensor. And it turns out I actually do need that. When I'm shooting 4K and I'm handheld all the time, it helps to have that.
Okay, you mentioned dark bars.
Yeah.
So how does it compare in other low light scenarios, and I guess also quite brightly lit outdoor scenarios?
Right. Well, I was a little bit worried because I decided to take this into some dark bars, and I wanted to shoot in 4K 60 instead of 30 frames, which I'm used to for television. So I cut my shutter speed in half. I'm already shooting at 1/120th of a second now, so I'm getting half as much light performance as I would on a normal project. So I was a little bit worried about that, but with these lenses, I was shooting with the prime lenses, like the 12mm, and there's a 42.5mm that also does really well in low light. I found I never needed to be higher than 1600 ISO, and I was really happy with the shots I was getting out of the camera. As far as outside, I want to maintain a pretty, like 1/120th of a second shutter speed. So I often put like an ND3 on this camera to shoot video outside, just to knock down the exposure. Okay.
So what's next for you?
I will probably go back to working in news in New York City. So I may do some documentary stuff on the side, but I haven't decided on my next film. I often am inspired, like with the ice documentary. I was in a bar and decided to make a film about ice, and I started shooting it the next week. So a lot of times I just wait to see what inspires me.
And do you think there's a role for this type of camera in scenarios like news?
Oh, yeah. I think especially in news, the fact that I can fit 2 camera bodies and 6 lenses in one backpack. I travel all over the country, all over the world now, and I don't like to have to check a bag if I don't have to. So I can fit all of this in my carry-on luggage, and then I can just show up at a shoot with one tripod. I often carry around these little clamps that connect to the bottom of the camera on the tripod mount, a little ball head, and it has a clamp on the other end. And now I can turn anything into a tripod, a table or a chair. So I don't need to bring a ton of gear. I can bring some really tiny lighting with me, and I can do like a whole 2-camera interview setup with pretty minimal equipment.
Okay. All right. And I guess having tested, what sort of features do you think should be coming down the track?
What should they continue to add?
Yeah.
Well, one thing I'm excited about is that this camera can shoot anamorphic. If you want to put an anamorphic lens on, you can use the whole 4x3 sensor and squeeze that image onto it. But they're actually releasing a firmware upgrade soon. They keep adding new features to the existing camera. They're going to add 400 megabit recording if you need really high bit rate. But they're also adding a high resolution anamorphic. So you'll be able to shoot the entire 20 megapixel sensor in 4x3, which you could either use for anamorphic lenses, or I could just shoot a film in 4x3 and have that extra high resolution. So I feel like I need to pick up some anamorphic lenses and take advantage of that.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for coming on.
I'm glad to be here, Phil.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Thanks a lot.